How are you?
Hello.
Well, I really enjoyed your conversation with Patty.
Mm.
Sitting with sensations is something that I'm wanting to do more of. But what I find is I don't feel big sensations. I know growing up, my mom growing up, there was a lot of yelling in her family. And so she often said when she had a family, there was going to be no yelling, no arguing.
Yeah.
There wasn't, as far as I can remember. So I never really developed the skills to deal with that, for one thing. But I find for myself that there just aren't big feelings to sit with. There's lots of little feelings.
Mm.
But when I sit with the little feelings, they kind of, I don't know, I don't know if there's a way to engage with them more, to um, they just kind of they either don't do anything, they just kind of stay, or they will dissipate. And I don't feel that I really, yeah, I don't feel that I connect with little Mo easily. And that I don't have the vocabulary for how to comfort her a little bit, but not a lot. So I just that's what I have to work with, are the little sensations.
You,
You,
you
you
have
have
a quick first question is just, do you feel like you have big emotions?
no. Well, no, I'd say no.
So it's not just that you don't feel a lot in the body. It's that you're not really sensing a lot of emotional change or a lot of
Yeah,
because the like I could hear in your voice even the sort of emotion when you talked about little Mo. And it's like there's something there that feels this, like there is something that would like to be met, would like to be felt, and
yes,
it's
I
just
agree.
finding the way of getting in contact with that. um how do you know, in what ways does that little Mo have, I love that name, have should make herself known? How does she get seen, that you even know that there's something there that could use being reached out to?
Uh, well, there are sensations, emotions, things that have come up recently that
Mhm.
feel new. Um, and My mind just went blank.
What kind of sensations and emotions?
Oh goodness, I'm totally blanking out on that. Um, the stock answer would be not being good enough, but there's specific some things that I've been realizing lately, not standing up for myself,
Mm.
um, not taking my space, and I feel it, and I feel her in that. It feels like it feels like she's feeling what that the feeling's coming from her. Um, it's really funny that I cannot recall, because I've probably posted about it on Discord. I don't know, but it's gone. But it feels, oh, not wanting to make my husband angry. That and that feels very young, from a year, and yet I have no sense growing up that that was a thing. But that clearly was a thing, because I'm noticing in so many different ways
Mm.
how I curtail, I and it's like I don't want to take too long doing the things that I do but my husband will never, like, it's totally fine. Like, there's no reality to it, but I feel her um, anxiety around that.
To me, it sounds a lot like a fourth fetter issue, because you keep comparing. When you say I don't have any big emotions, what are you comparing to? What, there's something here, and then there's a fantasy there that you do not have, the big emotions that you do not have, that you do want. And just like you say, I don't want to take up too much time. Again, there's a comparing. What is too much time? I mean, we can be digging a hole until we drop dead at the age of 95. So what is too much time? You know what I mean? There is a comparison all the way, with everything that is not this. Yeah, the feelings that you have, they 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 are not big enough. And when you go blank, there's something that you should not go blank. That there's a constantly comparison with something that is not here, and what is here is not what you want. It's something else that you want. I want the bigger feelings. I don't want to take up time and take too long time, and I don't want to, instead of noticing what actually is here, because little Mo is here, you know, and that constant comparison. But if I'm there, then I can be with the little Mo. But that is right here.
So it's a question that I did ask on Discord recently about, do you, because there's two kinds of approaches that I've heard. One where you drop the label and sit with the sensation.
Yeah.
The other is the reparenting. So being with little Mo and listening to her and hearing her. And
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just two different entries into the same thing. It's just two different fingers pointing at the same moon.
yeah.
So it's the same thing. Whatever works. If it works for you, just to sit right now when you go blank. I love Jahara. Whenever she is put on the spot on the camera, the first thing she does is closing her eyes and breathe and connect to the body. And she does not give a flying fruit about who is sitting and waiting or how long it's going to take. I need to connect to ask my question. And I love that so much, because that is exactly what all of us need. You know, whenever we ask the question, all of us need just to, oh, just a moment, just a moment. I just got rattled there a moment. I completely forgot what it was I'm doing. And then just connect with the body. Oh, yeah, I'm here now. And then you can buy the stamps at the post office or whatever you're standing and supposed to do. So it's the same thing. When you have that feeling of, I don't have big emotions. Okay, what is here right now? What do you feel? I feel completely numb. Okay, can you be in a body right now that is completely numb? Remove the label of numb. How does it feel to be in a body that feels like it does right now?
Okay, so often and right now, the sensation is in the throat and down to the solar plexus.
Yeah. So sit and breathe with that. You can put a hand on your throat if you want to, and the solar plexus. Just sit and breathe with it. And notice that it's just a snapshot of a now, and another snapshot of a now, and another snapshot of a now. And you will notice that that contraction in the throat and down to the solar plexus, it's not a solid sensation. It's moving and changing with every single breath you do, with every single new snapshot that is happening. The sensation is actually alive. Something is happening.
You
Okay.
can notice also that the sensation isn't the totality of your experience, right? Like, can you feel the space around the sensation?
That's a good one too. Yeah.
That it's almost like you're seeing or feeling it from a bit of a distance where you can actually feel the space encapsulating it. Like, it's not the entirety of your experience is that clenching, right?
Right.
So you can actually practice to feel that, where you're feeling more and more of the space around. You can kind of expand that out and allow that sensation to still be there, but it's taking up less of your attention or less of the awareness. And from that perspective, you can then also, you can gain some perspective that because when it's really big, when it feels like it's really intense, it seems to be telling you something very important that needs your attention, that you have to follow up into, to inquire into. And when we can see it from a distance, all of a sudden it doesn't seem as important anymore. It starts to lose some of that weight that it seems to have in our momentary experience right now.
So that's really interesting because I thought the important thing was to do the exact opposite of that.
Mhm. Going into it to feel more and more and more until
You let it get bigger and bigger. I mean, I've heard Pernilla say that. Let it, stay with it, let it get bigger and bigger, then drop the label and stay with the sensation. But I could easily do what you're saying, and that seems to be what I mean, that specifically that's not what I've done, but distracting myself is definitely what I've done.
yeah.
So,
And this is a way of not distracting ourselves from it. You're still fully present with it, but you're aware of the malleability of what we take to be our experience. And it's pointing into the sixth fetter, and it's pointing to that way that we shape our experience into something when it's really not. So it's not that I am here in this little inner room surrounded by this overwhelming sensation. You're starting to have that moment of control over it, where it's like, oh, well, actually I can zoom out so that sensation is way over there and I can still feel it, but all of a sudden I have all this spaciousness to play around in, and the entire the entire experience starts to change from that. And then you start to get into that experience of even your external world isn't the solid thing that you once took it to be. That it's not that because the wall is out there, I assume the wall is exactly 6 feet away from me, and I can, it's that same sort of malleability that you're starting to play with internally as well as externally. And then it's with the seventh fetter, with what you actually make out of that sensation. So originally it's, well, I have this sensation and it means dread. It means that I'm not good enough. It means that I'm not allowed to take up space. Well, where in that sensation can you find that sentence? Where in that sensation is that meaning lying? So is it something that has been adhered to it? It's just glued to it by way of, a thought that gets stuck to it. So now it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is just a little nugget of bzzz that's off in the distance. And it's not my overwhelming inability to stand up for myself, or my overwhelming inability to ask for my needs to be met, or whatever else. This is just, oh, it's just a little sensation in the body. Wasn't that curious? Yeah.
like that. Thank
You
you.
have a really good poem in Todd. He's writing a poetry book.
You don't have to announce it every single meeting.
I do. It's so good. Todd is writing a poetry book. My clever husband, he's a poet, and he's so good.
He's a poet.
He's a poet. He hates when I'm saying that. But he has a really, really good poem where, and I'm gonna butcher this right now, so hold on to your suspenders.
I'm very excited to hear this.
It's where he's describing that he's sitting in a red room, and everything is just red around him, and the walls are red, and the furniture is red, everything is just crimson red. And then he kind of like ends up in a position where he's standing on a field and it's just mountains and green field and everything, and there's one single puppy on that whole field. That was that red room. And I just butchered it, and I hope all of you understood what the symbolism is, because it's absolutely beautiful. It's exactly that. By whatever feels huge, when we really put it into perspective, it is nothing but a little crimson puppy on a huge field.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was.
You can look forward. It's a bloody amazing book. It's so good. It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for your perspective, Todd. That really just did a big flip.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And it's not to also devalue what Pernilla has said
No,
about
it's
feeling the sensation and letting it bigger and bigger. That's also another
you need
approach
to do no, but you need to do that first. You need to allow things that you have pushed away your entire life. You need to allow it to be there without a label on it, and allow it to be as big as possible. So it cannot go any bigger. It needs to be allowed before you can see that it's just a little red crimson puppy on a field. It needs to have space. We need to create the space, the self-care for the non-self. We need to do that first, because otherwise, if you just jump straight into I'm a puppy on the field, it's bypassing 101.
Okay, so how do I do that then? How do I, if it's not going to get bigger and bigger and it's doesn't seem to go anywhere, how do I give it space when it just kind of dissipates?
Allow it to be exactly like it is.
Yeah, I mean, however, you have in mind now that it has to become as big as the room, but it's not a problem that it's not getting to be as big as the room. It just gets to be as big as a thimble, and that's what it is. Let it become as big as a thimble, if that's as big as it gets, and then just see what you can get out of that experience. If it's not overwhelming, then it's not overwhelming. You don't have to try to make it into something that it's not. It's just we normally go through life deflecting, distracting, and making it so that we don't feel what's already there.
Like Patty talked about, that
exactly.
all that toxic positivity has completely pushed everything aside. That needs to be, experienced.
Yeah. And so this is a way of openly embracing whatever it is at whatever extreme it wants to show up. And it doesn't have to show up at one of those extremes. It's just giving it the opportunity to, if it wants to grow, if it wants to expand, if it wants to fill the room, it can. And then you notice that even if it does, it doesn't have that overwhelming character that we gave it when we were only looking at it through like the keyhole of, it's like we feel like there's some really scary thing and we're like, well, okay, I'll just look at it from here. I'm not going to, can't really open my eyes to it. It's really seeing it full on. It's like, oh, okay, you're really not that terrifying now that I see you with both eyes open. It's that approach. And then just really, really feeling however it shows up and noticing what else it brings with it. Does it bring thoughts about all of the other inadequacies and inabilities and unmet needs and all the beliefs that you have about yourself? Do those things come with it? And then, like I said, does the sensation itself have that sentence inherent in it? Is it really related to those things, or is this like a piggyback, like the sensation is here and there's a thought that seems to come with it, and then which one comes first? And you can kind of have fun just exploring all of this and see how this is really developing, and how perhaps you had one thought about, oh, I always have to rush so my husband doesn't think badly, and then all of a sudden you get this contraction in the throat, and now if you're feeling the contraction in the throat, that might bring up a spiral of all of these memories of other times that you've done that in the past with other people, or just forced yourself into these experiences where you've been in positions where you don't allow yourself to fully do what you're doing or express what you want to express, because you're thinking about how somebody else is going to interpret this, or what my doing this might cause them to think or do or say, and I have to manage that ahead of time. you might get a flurry of that. And then each one of those is probably going to spark more of that sensation. And it's just being aware, okay, it's sensation. It's not the overwhelming thing. And the thought isn't an overwhelming thing. The thought is just a sentence. The thought is just a mental image that shows up. There's nothing overwhelming in one of those, and there's nothing overwhelming in the sensation itself. It's the combining of the two when we don't feel like we have the bandwidth or the capacity to really fully accept it and fully encounter it, that we make it into something so much bigger than it is. So we're taking it apart to see, okay, I can actually sit with this component and I can sit with this component, and it's totally fine. It might not be the most comfortable part of my day, but it's okay. It's not overwhelming. And as you found, it does dissipate on its own very quickly if we're not creating more and more story, imagining more and more scenarios that reflect it and reinforce it.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you so
So
much.
good to see you as always.
Yeah.